In particular, yes, we're here at Leeds railway station. Leeds, one of the cities that would be connected by that high-speed rail link HS2. It comes at a pretty heavy price tag, around £50 billion. Let's talk now to Martin Abrams from the Campaign for Better Transport. Martin, we've had lots of people on Twitter today talking to us about HS2. Philip O'Rourke, for example, saying it's a political vanity project. Where do you stand on HS2?
Well, this government's transport policy has unfortunately been dominated by massive infrastructure projects like HS2, but also huge road building programmes, and also the Davis Commission figuring out where to build the next big airport hub. On HS2, Campaign for Better Transport is supportive of the principle of high-speed rail, but we're not yet fully supportive of the high-speed 2 project, because there's no guarantees that actually fares will be any cheaper. We suspect that fares might be increased massively to fund it, and also that funds might be diverted away from local transport projects. I think what local people want to see is the future government committing to those local transport projects and fixing problems like potholes, like extortionately high rail fares, and reversing the savage cuts to local bus services that we've seen over the course of the last government.
And just speaking of rail fares, for example, we've seen promises in this election campaign on that. Chris Balding tweeted to say fares always going up, wages though at a standstill. What do you think about rail fares? Can they be cut, or can they at least be pegged after this election?
Well, we run a campaign called Fair Fares Now, and we've been monitoring what's been happening to rail fares over the course of the last 5 years. And what we found is that fares have increased by around 22% on average, whereas people's wages have gone up by less than 7%. So, successive governments have pursued a policy of above inflation busting fare increases, and that's really hitting people hard. And we're still waiting for any government, the next government, to announce that they will do things for part-time workers. There's no cheaper option for part-time workers or people on 0 hours contracts. We welcome what the Conservative Party announced this week on holding fares at inflation, but we don't think that's going far enough. There needs to be much more work to make sure that we have an affordable railway system.
And we've talked, Martin, a lot about the railways, about HS2 and so on, but the roads, more people go to work on the roads, on buses and so on, than on the trains. So what about where the different parties stand on the roads, buses, coaches and so on?
Well, buses, and we're very worried about what's happening to local buses in particular. We produced a report in January called Buses in Crisis, which showed that over the course of the last 5 years, about £50 million has been cut from local council-supported bus services following huge cuts by central government to local authority funding. And that means that about 2,000 bus services have been lost over the course of the last 5 years, meaning many people in areas, communities, have been cut off completely. And this has huge impacts on people. In terms of roads, George Osborne stood at the dispatch box at his autumn statement and announced a huge amount of spending. About £30 billion will be spent on new and unnecessary roads. We would say a fraction amount of that money should be diverted to local transport like buses to make sure people are connected. More people commute to work on buses than any other mode of public transport combined, but yet successive governments seem to have neglected them.
Okay, Martin Abrams from the Campaign for Better Transport, thank you very much indeed. We're going to be talking about